This is what Blake brought my drink.
Let me see. Wait.
Our Walmart cups.
That's okay. Very fitting. I have a U.S. Open.
I did say literally anything, but I was thinking like is this just water? I meant like alcoholic because you know we do the drink thing.
What do you want? Literally anything.
What kind of water is it? Refrigerated water or from the sink?
God, this is why we're best friends. 3, 2.
Hi, Dee.
Hi, Dee.
I went to Gatlinburg for the 4th to see Sophia dance for the last time. My cousin, who dances at the studio, I danced at. Crazy. My Aunt Dawn was pregnant with her the last time she saw me dance. And then I just saw her dance. And next year I'm signing Holland up.
God, I cannot wait. Because, Holland is going to be a fucking fierce dancer. And she's got that name. And it's just going to be like on everyone's. Oh, my God, I can't wait.
We're going to be the dance mom and dads.
Get into the right split.
Work your turns now. Go, 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 go. I do think she's saying, oh, shit. I think she learned it from me, and I don't know how to reverse it. Like, she says, what's that? And you can tell she's saying, what's that? Because she points, but then when she drops something, it's either uh-oh or, oh, shit. I'm like, I think that's oh, shit.
What does Blake say?
He didn't catch on to it. So I'm just like, oh, how cute. Oh, shit.
Nope.
Oh,
Wrong.
And she'll say it over and over and over again. Oh, shit.
Maybe she's saying ocean.
Nah, she's saying oh shit. Because then I started paying attention to how much I say it. And I was like, oh shit. Any ghost stories lately?
So I live in a 4-story walk-up. And lately, as we have heard in the past episodes, I've talked about my squirrel problems. Right. So whenever I go to see a Broadway show in New York, like I will always get a playbill. And I'll usually... At the show, I'll get a drink, and I'll make sure that it is poured into a souvenir cup so I can take the souvenir cup home. Oh, that's
cute.
Right? I have like a shelf, and I put all my playbills up that I have seen shows with, and then the souvenir cups in front of. So I go to see this show that has just closed. It's called Illinois. The show is based around a group of teenagers that are around a campfire, and they're telling their own personal stories. But they're not singing or talking. They're only doing it through dance. And the band and orchestra is on the risers above them. And the set, it looks so much like a Midwestern. Like you see the billboard in the back. And the billboard, you think when you sit down in the theater, is just the billboard that says Illinois. But it's actually projection. And every camp story that's being told is the title of what their story is. And you're given inside the playbill the journal of the main character. And like you see the main character that is having something sort of struggle or story that's happening in the very beginning. And then it goes into all of the stories. All of the stories are so in-depth and unique. It's the only playbill that I have that's not an actual playbill. Like you get the actual journal from that's from the character. Yeah. Throughout the show, you're watching this character that's writing in his journal these people's stories. Cool. So I have the Illinois journal as the main thing on the shelf, right? That's like the last show that I've seen. Yeah. So I go out one night and then I come back and all of my playbills and my cups are off the shelf. Fast forward to I put all of my playbills back up onto my shelf. Yeah. And this morning I'm literally sleeping and wake. I'm not kidding you, Danielle. I wake up and I hear a full bang. Hold on. I even have in front of the Illinois playbill journal thing, my bottle of cologne, which is fucking heavy. Yeah. I have my bottle of fucking cologne to hold everything back, and the only playbill to fall off the shelf is that fucking journal.
Wow.
And the Illinois cup.
That's it.
Somehow, I don't even know how it happened, is that the journal completely fell off the shelf, past the bottle of cologne, that one fell off, and the cup, which is completely stuck behind the bottle of cologne.
That's weird.
And I mean, listen, I don't know if it's squirrels, but the squirrels have to be fucking heavy squirrels to be pushing vibrations through that wall for one playbill, which is, it's not even the playbill though, it's the journal.
It's a journal.
It's the journal that comes in that playbill to that completely fell off the shelf.
Wow.
And I woke up to it this morning.
That's a terrifying way to wake up.
Is it a ghost? I don't know.
You said your apartment, and I didn't want to interrupt you in your story. You said your apartment is a 4-story walk up?
Yeah,
Do I have to walk?
Be ready to walk up those steps.
Are you serious?
No joke. I'm on 4S.
Okay, come back for me on level 2 for lunch, and I'll do the other half. All right, so now for today's episode, what is our drink from your grandpa's little black book?
I think this might be the most fitting one. You guys don't know this as this is the start of the episode, but this one will reign true to the fitting of this episode. It's called the Grasshopper.
Perfect.
Mind you, this is my mom's favorite drink that my grandpa used to make her. And after watching this episode and like us getting ready for us recording, I just thought, oh my gosh, this would be perfect. And I've been trying to find the perfect episode to fit this drink in. Mind you, this is very hard to find. It is creme de menthe, creme de cacao, and heavy cream. Now that sounds weird, but I promise you it tastes fantastic. It's 1 ounce of green creme de menthe, 1 ounce of white creme de cacao, and 1 ounce of heavy cream. Shake well, strain into a 4-ounce little cocktail glass, and you have to use egg white to pour on top. And it is so good. It's so good. But it's so weird because my mom used to say this would be the like holiday cocktail that my grandpa used to make all the time.
Oh.
I tried to look it up online. It's non-existent.
I have never heard of any of them that we've seen in that book.
Some of them I feel like in our day and age come across as
he
like
gave
different.
it a different name.
Yeah. But this one, there is no recollection of any of this, but it is actually very good. It's called the Grasshopper, and I feel like that's fitting for our episode.
Yeah, we'll post it on our Instagram if
Yes.
anyone is adventurous enough to go out and search for those very unique ingredients.
Mind you, in Harlem, in New York, they happen to have those in the alcohol store, so let's go.
All right, ready to get into it?
Let's fucking do it.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the Forensic Files Duo podcast, where we recap, review, and provide updates on the cases featured on the true crime TV show Forensic Files. I'm Drew.
I'm Danielle.
We're on episode 10, and if you don't know anything about us, honestly, it's fine.
It's totally fine, Mom.
It's not fine. We're on episode 10. We're about to finish our first season. If you don't know anything about us, honestly, I'm not happy.
Say it like you feel it, Drew.
I'm not happy. You should know us by now. If you're listening to this for the first time, thank you for coming to our podcast.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. I promise we're very professional here.
Yes, and like, you know what? Go and listen to episode 1. And thank you for coming to us at episode 10.
What took you so long?
I know,
Damn.
really.
Okay. In all seriousness, today's episode is listed on Wikipedia as Season 1, Episode 5, titled Planted Evidence. Now, remember what we said at the end of last episode, episode 9?
Our next episode bounces us right back to season 1. It is episode 5 called Planted Evidence. My brain went straight to Little Shop of Horrors.
Mine too.
I'm pretty sure this is not going to be about a man-eating plant, so hopefully, fingers crossed. So I wasn't completely wrong. For once, this episode title actually makes sense. A little bit.
Yep.
A little bit.
Yeah. That plant comes for this man.
It absolutely does. Well, in this episode, we go back to 1992 and learn that 32-year-old single mother Denise Johnson was found strangled to death in a deserted area outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Do we have more info on Phoenix in the early 90s?
We do. So someone on Reddit asked, what's the one thing about living in Phoenix in the 1990s that you remember the most? And the last comment was 1990s pre-corporate takeover. So with some other research that I did, it truly just sums that up. Phoenix was the business heart of Arizona back in 1989, and the biggest man in Arizona was in a ton of legal trouble for fraud and racketeering. So this guy, he owned so much in the state that when he got in trouble and his businesses started filing bankruptcy and things like that, it impacted almost every single industry in Phoenix. There was also a savings and loan scandal, which ended up being a financial crisis, and the taxpayers had to cover that, and it cost about $132 billion in
What?
taxpayers' money. As of 1989, that's when things just started kind of like, bam, bad, bad, bad. So, yeah, the 90s did not get off to a good start. Unemployment in Arizona rose from 5.3% in May of 1990 to a peak of 7.8% in March of 1992, which is the year and about 2 months before Denise's death. So that just gives you kind of an idea of socioeconomic environment of what was going on. Actually, I found from roguecolumnist.com, the journalist John Talton states that the suburbs were more conservative and didn't want any of their money going towards the city or the city coming to them. So the city was just cut off. There was a big, big boom in the 90s for suburbia. And a lot of people just left the city, which took a ton of taxpayers' dollars out of the city. And then you have now this conservative wave of trying to cut off the city. So it's just like this big thing in the area in the city of Phoenix, of just economic hardship after economic hardship. Because then simultaneously, it's just like when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of development projects. They just fell apart. They were slated to go. They had approval, all these things. And I don't know. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Which one came first? I don't know if it's like these scandals and all this, whatever. But those development projects that were slated to probably bring in a bunch of money for the city and bring in jobs, all of it just dead in the water. Nothing happened. They also had opportunities to headquarter some tech companies and they just didn't take it. They didn't act on it, or whether they didn't win the bid, I'm not sure. But that was another lost opportunity. So not the decade for Phoenix whatsoever. And so this is all happening at the time of Denise's death. So moving forward, I would just like everyone to keep that in mind. Just remember the circumstances.
We're talking about Phoenix, Arizona, which is
right.
very much a city that everyone knows, and that is very much like on the forefront of everyone's mind when you think of the state of Arizona. I don't know any city in Arizona besides Phoenix. Don't come for me on social media.
Oh, my aunt and uncle live in Arizona. Surprise, Arizona.
It's actually called Surprise.
It's actually called Surprise. I drove through Arizona. I was driving back from LA by myself because I'm an independent woman.
Yes, bitch.
And horrible idea. I stopped and stayed with them, and I drove through Phoenix, and honestly, it looks very new. And like all those new developments that didn't happen in the 90s must have happened at some point.
Were there a lot of surprises? Sorry, I had to ask. Well, now I know 2 cities in Arizona, so thank you. I really do learn something new every time I do this podcast.
Just here to teach. All right, we open on a reenactment, and trigger warning for anyone who's going to watch the actual episode. We open on this reenactment actress. She's supposed to be representing the murdered victim, Denise Johnson. The actress looks completely undressed from the waist down. It stopped me. And we see this image so many times. Am I seeing that right? Did they seriously show her whole lower half of her body?
Yeah, it was almost nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's low quality black and white, so I wasn't sure, like, is this playing tricks on my mind? But how degrading is that? And this is like 1990s. I didn't think they were allowed to show that on TV.
I have so many questions about all of these reenactments in this episode. We find out early one morning in a deserted area outside of Phoenix, a motorcyclist discovered the body of a young woman. She had been beaten, bound, strangled, and possibly raped. The surrounding plants would tell more about her killer than any other single piece of the evidence.
Investigators gather every possible piece of evidence from the crime scene. This is something I think about all the time. I can barely find matching socks for myself or like my children, let alone sifting through dirt, or the wilderness. Not even sure what you're going to find or what you're even looking for. It's a process that is truly intriguing to me.
It's not to me. This sounds like so much work.
I'm like, you sift through, like, where do you end? Like, do you just keep sifting?
This sounds literally like finding a needle in a haystack. That is all I could think through this whole episode.
Yeah.
Finding a needle in a haystack. Like, this is that. This is that analogy.
Yes.
This is that episode.
100%. Okay, so now Peter confirms what I thought I saw in the reenactment.
The victim was nude except for a pulled-up tank top and a T-shirt wrapped around her neck.
The T-shirt was wrapped around her neck, which they suspected was used to strangle her, and her wrists and ankles were loosely bound with shoelaces and with what looked like picture-hanging wire. This is a reference I'm not sure young people will understand, but since I love vintage, vintage and antique decor, I have a lot of decor with that picture hanging wire. And let me tell you, that stuff is thick and very sharp.
Very sharp.
Yeah, it's like that metal wire. It's incredibly durable. It's like twisted and braided. I cannot imagine the pain something like that would cause.
Well, we need to bring that back because, like, these stupid little sticky tack hanging things that you put on your back of your pictures, they don't do it. They do not work.
They don't do it.
They don't work, especially when you're in New York City heat of 92 degrees. That fucking condensation behind those little sticky tacks, that doesn't work. Everything fucking drops. So let's bring back that wire, but not to kill people.
Yeah, not to kill people. But I totally agree. And I endorse this message because it clearly doesn't work on walls from 1840 either. And if one more falling curtain rod wakes up my baby in the middle of the night, causing me to wake up in the middle of the night, I'm going to be at their door of the picture wire hanging company with a sign to come back in business. Just there by myself. It's an abandoned building.
I support you.
I support you. Nearby investigators found a syringe, articles of clothing, then
They heard some evidence. It was a pager, found deep in the grass a few feet from the body.
We see and hear a very loud pager noise that Forensic Files decided to, like, blast full volume to make sure that we know what a pager was. I'm pretty sure that Gen Z doesn't know what a pager is.
Okay, pagers, literally you would call them. A phone number would show up on the little itty bitty screen, and then you would have to call that phone number back. So it was like caller ID. It was like just a caller ID device. You couldn't answer it. You couldn't leave a voicemail. I only knew, I think, about it because of like ER. My mom watched ER.
I remember my dad had one.
Yeah, well then it was on TV for medical people and then the drug dealer. It was pretty extreme.
Basically, it was like everyone who needed to be called, doctors, police officers, firefighters, and drug dealers.
That was the stereotype. I just remember parents freaking out if they found out their child had a pager because that meant one thing.
Yeah, that's so weird, though, because, like...
Isn't it?
I just remember growing up and we were in, like, grade school, and my dad definitely had a pager.
No, that makes sense.
I remember hearing the sound that played when I was watching the episode, and it was like, dee-dee, 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 and it was like almost like Morse code.
Yeah, it does.
Like 911, Titanic is sinking, dee-dee, dee-dee, dee-dee.
SOS, SOS.
Yeah. So anyways, we do hear this very loud pager in the reenactment that is shown to be found in the grass a few feet from the body that was found. This was enough evidence to make this into a much larger search, and we actually find out that a helicopter was taking aerial photographs of the scene. These photographs showed a circular area of matted grass where it seems like an altercation took place.
The medical examiner did a fingerprint search to identify the victim, and they had a hit. The fingerprint match tells us that the victim is 32-year-old Denise Johnson, a single mother of 2 young kids. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute because this is a true crime class that I'm not sure we've covered on our podcast yet.
Ooh.
Yeah, so most, if not all states, have a fingerprint database.
Okay.
There is an FBI national fingerprint database. I thought it was called AFIS, but when I looked it up, it was IAFIS.
Sorry.
And I actually looked on YouTube how to pronounce it. And it's like IAFIS. I was like, I don't know if we're just putting I in front of everything now, but all states should have their own fingerprint database. Most commonly, the database is filled with convicted individuals, but depending on your career field, you can be required to submit your fingerprints. So if there was no hit, Denise, she would have been labeled as a Jane Doe until a friend or a family member reported her missing. So now that we know all of that, we find out later why there is a match, but I'm just going to get right to it. She has a record for sex work. You can have your opinions on all that all day long, but it's an industry that has always existed and will always exist. So criminalization of it does make it inherently more dangerous. So if your mind just immediately wanted to debate what I just said. I want to remind you that you're listening to a true crime podcast, and I just told you the murdered victim did sex work. So, point in case. So, we learned that Denise was born and raised in Phoenix. Denise grew up in poverty, but Forensic Files, they decided to show the most dilapidated house that they could find without clarifying whether it's hers or not. And then we cut to her mom. It just seems really dehumanizing and cruel to lead with that and then go right to her mother, but it does sound like Denise struggled with addiction. Whether it was addiction she struggled with or the addiction was how she coped with other things that she didn't have access to, we will never know. But I do want us to have a lot of compassion for Denise. I just want to go a little bit further on that because in a blog post on the Center for Law and Social Policy's website, clasp.org, Indivar Dudagupta summarizes his recent testimony to Congress on the history of bipartisan support behind the child tax credit. He states poverty is bad for children. Multiple studies show that children who grow up in poverty are more likely to experience poverty and health challenges as adults. Nearly all research relies upon a panel study of income dynamics that they reference as PSID. It's a survey that started tracking different cohorts of children over multiple decades when it launched in 1968. And here are the facts. The longer children live in poverty, the more likely they will experience poverty as adults. Childhood poverty is associated with reduced educational attainment and economic prospects. The cost of doing nothing about childhood poverty reverberates from the individual child and their family to their neighborhoods and communities. So it's systemic. And finally, to the macro economy. A 2018 study estimates that child poverty costs the U.S. economy just over $1 trillion per year. These costs, though, they come in the form of lost economic productivity and spending related to crime, healthcare, child welfare, and homelessness. Researchers estimate that for every dollar spent on reducing child poverty, the U.S. would gain back $7 in economic and social benefits.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Childhood poverty leads to worse mental and physical health in adulthood. Several studies illustrate how time spent in poverty during childhood results in adverse health outcomes in adulthood. One landmark study examined PSID data, and it tracked children until the age of 37 and found that those who experienced poverty in early childhood were twice as likely to report poor overall health and higher levels of psychological distress. Other research shows that childhood poverty is associated with higher rates of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, as well as deficits in memory, chronic psychological distress, and feelings of helplessness. The evidence is crystal clear, he said. Childhood poverty has long-lasting, devastating consequences, severely limiting human and national potential by holding back individuals and communities. So,
whoa, that is so deep. That is so deep.
It's very deep, and it all makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does.
So yes, let's keep all of that in mind as we move forward here. And I want to always remember what we just learned and how poverty systemically impacts communities and impacts an individual into adulthood, because this episode gets very victim blamey.
Yeah.
But here is what her mom and sister have to say about Denise in this episode.
She wasn't a bad girl. Some of her friends, I think she got with the wrong friends. I ain't gonna say they made her do these things now.
I don't really know what they were doing, but she was out there in the world with people that did drugs, I'm sure, and sometimes I think she trusted too much.
Right. So I said things get very victim blamey, and here we go. So instead of discussing the systemic economic hardships of the city, the difficult socioeconomic environment Denise was born into, or any other challenges she was facing, we go right into the fact that she got the nickname Twist Mama because of her history of shortchanging truck drivers and drug deals at a local truck stop. Of course, her friends and loved ones cautioned her about her lifestyle, but Forensic Files literally shows the recreation scene of Denise's body in the wilderness, while homicide detective Charles Norton literally says her friends cautioned her that her lifestyle was probably going to find her in a lot of trouble, and eventually it did. When we talk about rape culture, this is it. This is rape culture. Because, I mean, for fuck's sake, I don't want to be on a soapbox for this, but it's so blatant that it makes me so angry. Unpacking that statement for just a brief moment, he tells us basically that society as a whole accepts, quote unquote, the trouble in the form of murder as being some sort of natural expected outcome when one apparently chooses a life of sex work or addiction, like no one goes out and wakes up at whatever age and is like, this is what I'm choosing for myself today because I have all the options in the world.
Right.
And this is what I'm choosing.
Right.
Anyways, if society accepts rape and murder as a natural outcome for a person in those environments, that means society is accepting the perpetrators who are committing those crimes. Because it ain't Mother Nature whipping up a predator out of the wind and sand. This is a human being who made those choices, yet we're not holding that person accountable. We're holding Denise accountable for her choices. I'm just frustrated that we don't focus more on the predators who prey on the vulnerable members of our society.
Her friends cautioned her that her lifestyle was probably going to find her in a lot of trouble someday. And eventually it did.
But who ended Denise Johnson's life?
This whole investigation started with the pager that was found near the body. We find out that the pager belonged to a man who, in my opinion, after we see a photo of him, looks fucked up on a lot of things to take that. I was about to say headshot, but it's not a headshot.
Headshot?
It is definitely a, what do you call it?
A mugshot.
Yep, it's definitely called a mugshot. Oh my god, headshot, mugshot.
Big difference.
It should not have the same last word.
Well, what would you call it, Drew?
A very serious crime photo. That's what we should call it.
An uh-oh photo, or as Holland would say,
yeah, an uh-oh, did something wrong photo.
Shit. Oh shit
uh-oh.
photo.
An oh shit photo, not a headshot, mugshot. Oh god.
Now you're gonna get the two forever mixed up.
I know for a fact I'm gonna get them mixed up.
You're talking to your agent. Yep, don't worry, I'm getting new mugshots. You're at an audition. Mugshot and resume. Mugshot and resume.
Does everyone have their mugshots and resumes? Okay, we find out that the pager belonged to a man, and his name is Mark Bogan. We then get back into my favorite style of reenactments, which is clearly black and white at this time, and is showing Mark meeting Denise outside of a phone booth where we learned that Denise asked Mark for a ride to the interstate.
Drew, I cannot take much more of this episode.
I am so happy that you are finally jumping on board with this whole reenactment thing because I can't take it anymore.
It is so horrendous. It's
bad.
They say she made sexual advances, pulled off the road, and that they had consensual sex. Whose side are we on, Forensic Files?
I think we're getting so heated about this because we're going back and forth from the first season to the last season. We're going from 1990s to 2000s, and we're not seeing much difference. It is so frustrating.
Yes, it's like they're making the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's enraging that a whole production
that thrived. This series thrived, and the fact that I don't think anyone's really paying attention to the fact that there's so many problematic things that are with this show.
Yeah.
That it's not okay.
No, you are absolutely right. And I think what just really got me at this specific part is they say that this is Mark's story of what happened. So then they're taking this suspect's version of the story and spending a whole bunch of production dollars, actors, producers, camera, lighting, editing, everything to tell what? His side? I can't wrap my head around it. And so it just gets worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. Because then after he claims they had consensual sex, he says that he was dropping her off and she attempted to steal some things off of his dashboard. And then we cut to the reenactment.
Oh, I had a really good time.
So did I, baby.
Did you?
Oh, always when I'm in the company of a lovely lady. I would really love to have my wallet back.
After a brief scuffle, he retrieved his wallet. She got out and left on foot.
I just feel like this whole episode is gaslighting me.
This episode is so gaslighting.
Yep. 100%.
This is actually where we find out that Bogan says this is the last time that he saw Denise. This all seems a bit fishy to me because Forensic Files says that she stole things from him and that he got his wallet back. But he didn't realize that his pager was missing.
I thought the same thing.
I'm sorry, but if now we're talking in 2024 right now. Mm-hmm. What are the three things that we walk out of the house and we make sure that we have? Phone, wallet, keys. PWK. That is literally the 3 things that we make sure that we have. And now we do not make sure that we leave anywhere without our phone because the phone is literally our lifeline for everything, right? And a pager back in those days
was the lifeline.
Was that, right? So, like, I don't even think I would have realized that my wallet was missing first. I would have realized that my pager was missing.
Yep. And especially that he assumed he lost it.
Yeah. The next morning, all of a sudden, notices that his pager was missing. But thank God he has his wallet for what? The credit cards that were not, like, non-existent back then? Right. I don't know. But he assumed, in quotations, that he lost his pager. And then we find out that he called the pager company to report that it was missing, which I'm assuming like you would call T-Mobile to report that your phone is missing. But even then, I don't even know. I'm trying to just like correlate things that would make things a little bit more clear for me in today's day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, during the interrogation from the police, the investigators noticed scratch marks on his face. And that's where Philip Keene comes in and says, if there were scratches on the suspect's face, then you would expect that if those were in fact inflicted by fingers or fingernails of the victim, there would be some residue of either the skin cells and or maybe even blood underneath those fingernails.
Right. Unfortunately, though, the autopsy revealed no skin or blood under her fingernails. The medical examiner, Philip Keene, he ruled that Denise Johnson's death was caused by asphyxiation due to strangulation. However, there were no signs of any type of sexual activity. There was no semen found, no foreign hairs, clothing fibers, or even saliva found anywhere on her body. And their one suspect, Mark Bogan, was apparently a dead end. But he's not, because what this episode doesn't tell you is that Mark's truck was spotted leaving the area where Denise's body was found. As stated in the Court of Appeals of Arizona petition for review by the Supreme Court, this document says that, which it is a public record and I read it, there was a witness, Chad Gilliam, who stated and later testified at the trial that he had been driving home from a party at around 1:30 a.m. that morning when he noticed a vehicle exiting the Caterpillar Proving Grounds. So this vehicle drove out of the proving grounds, ran a stop sign, turned south on Jackrabbit Trail Drive, these names. Wow. And the truck moved pretty quick towards the Interstate 10 over there. So if you're from Phoenix, this probably all sounds very familiar to you. I have no idea. He paid particular attention to the vehicle because the late hour and clearly how it was driving. I would remember if I saw a truck run a stop sign. Especially if
1,000%.
100%. Like, would totally remember that and be like, and then especially then something else happens and you find out the next morning there's a dead body found there. You're like, ding, ding,
oh
ding.
My God.
Like, that's going, yeah, my brain would just be going off. And I would approach the police as well. He was able to describe the truck, and his description of it was so specific that it corroborates the fact that Mark was there. So that's another witness. Like his testimony was solid.
I love how Forensic Files has these one-liners because they then say to us, the sheriff's office had not only a murder, but a mystery. Oh my God.
Sir.
That was honestly so dramatic enough for me to be like, you know what, Forensic Files, as much as I'm so pissed off at you throughout this whole thing, I'm so here for that line.
Here for it.
The sheriff's office had not only a murder, but a mystery. Oh, God, it was just like
5, 6, 7, 8.
On the day after police discovered Denise Johnson's body, we find out that homicide detective Charlie Norton was assigned to the case. He then says that, which I think is an obvious step to do as a detective or investigator, he then decides that this is the best thing to do, which is to go and investigate where the body was found. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, but I'm pretty sure like that should be like logic number 1. That's what you would normally do.
Yeah, in the book of how to be an investigator, detective, etc. It's step number 1.
That should have already been what they've been doing, but then all of a sudden we're in the episode and they're like, yes, Charlie Norton was assigned to the case. And do you know what he did? He went to the obvious step, which is Go and look where the body was found for any clues.
You don't get extra credit for doing your job, Charlie.
Now, Denise's body was found in a remote part of Maricopa County, which is about a half hour away from downtown Phoenix. Charlie goes out there and is looking for anything out of place or odd, basically anything that might have not been looked at the day before. Then he saw it. He found something on an, oh gosh, Danielle, a Palo
Verde.
Verde?
Verde.
Like salsa? Wait, is this where salsa verde comes from? This tree?
No, I think it's verde means green.
Are you sure? Oh my god, I have to ask Siri.
Vert in French is green.
Siri, what does verde mean?
Oh,
what does it mean?
I'm right.
Siri, what does verde mean? It's not answering me. Oh my god, it means green. Oh my god, that's why you get the spicy salsa and then you get the green salsa, which is the verde. Oh, so green means tree. Duh. Okay. I've never heard of a Palo Verde tree. Have you?
Yes.
You have.
Yes.
Should I know what a Palo Verde tree is?
I mean, yeah, you lived out in
Where?
Nevada. You lived in California.
Yeah, I know. I lived in a lot of places.
And the Palo Verde trees, I think, are like the most common tree out there, right?
I have no idea.
Or maybe I just recognized verde, which you didn't, as being green, and you didn't believe me, and you had asked Siri.
But now I know because it's a green salsa. So he found something on a Palo Verde tree, which is just a few feet away from where the body was found.
I had parked my car on the pavement. I noticed that there was a branch that was hanging over. And when I looked at that branch, I noticed that there was a fresh abrasion. And I had no idea what it might mean. But I took a picture of it. Then I took some beans off of that particular tree.
Investigators confiscated Mark Bogan's truck to look for possible evidence, but it was completely clean. No fingerprints, semen, blood, saliva, hair, clothing, fibers, nada, nothing. No evidence at all that Denise Johnson was ever in the truck, which is suspicious in and of itself. When investigators and police photographers looked in the back of the truck, they found 2 bean pods from a Palo Verde tree.
Okay, but let me take you back for a second because
Okay.
And now from our past episodes, I have been corrected by my family because a lot of stories might not have been the most clear. Literally just watched Christmas Story too long and I put those 2 stories together and that's what I thought happened to my brother. That didn't happen. So
Oh my God.
I just remember this one tree in front of my house and it would have these bean pods that would almost look like helicopters.
Oh my God. Yes. I haven't seen those.
Right, and in this episode, it shows a picture of these bean pods, and I'm almost positive that that's what I'm thinking of. You know one of those things that when they would fall off the tree, it would literally look like a helicopter.
Yeah, and people would whistle with them, right?
Yes. And I only remember that because I remember it being at a football practice that I didn't last long on that team. But I just remember having to do laps on the field and those trees were there and that was right about the time where I faked asthma and I just tried to get out of running laps, but I remember those trees with those little bean pods. Am I correct?
I
could be
remember
wrong.
those. No, I remember those, but I don't think that's
I don't think they're the same. I don't think they're the same because this is Arizona.
Yeah, no. They almost look like edamame.
Got it. Palo Verde trees are very common to Arizona. What I'm thinking about is coming straight from the Midwest and straight from a very problematic part of my childhood, running laps around a football field, which I was not made for. But anyways, here's where Charlie Norton's boss has an aha moment. He wanted to see if the DNA testing could match the bean pods from Bogan's truck to the tree from the crime scene. And basically, it seems like at this moment, they're like, well, goddamn, it's like, let's see if there's just a way to just test the plants.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh my gosh. This is so wild to me. When we get to this part, when you're watching this episode, you have no idea that this is going to go into this depth of plantness.
Especially when we were talking about the title in last episode
Yes,
and then referencing Little Shop of Horrors and a man-eating plant, and we're like, oh, like plants, like planted evidence.
Right. I guess we could just like give thanks to Forensic Files for doing something right by giving us a title that kind of gives us a little musical theater reference. Thank you, Forensic Files.
Thank you for that, I guess. Detective Norton started calling scientists all over the U.S., and 15 phone calls later, he found someone who offered some hope at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Plant geneticist Dr. Tim Helenjaris says he saw this task as sort of a public service thing that he could do to show some of this science is relevant to people in maybe such a way that's not quite as obvious sometimes through agriculture.
Could DNA really show that one plant or tree was different from another, even though they were the same species?
They tell us that DNA is present in all cells of all living things. It's like a little computer program containing all the information necessary to create a living thing. So all humans, we all have different DNA profiles, except for identical twins, which is just wild to me. Then we see previous Forensic Files footage from the case we covered in our episode 8. Our true crime Lord and Savior, Alec Jeffreys, the father of genetic DNA profiling, is back. So we're reminded that in the early 80s, this British scientist, Alec Jeffreys, discovered a test that made it possible to identify an individual's DNA profile. So Jeffreys' breakthrough technique was first used in a 1986 criminal case that we covered in episode 8, and that science convicted the murderer of Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth.
We find out that plant DNA at this time had never been actually used in a criminal case, which, I mean, to me still blows my mind that this is, that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought that we would be talking about plant DNA, and it is wild. But apparently the scientists feel the same way because they weren't sure if they could even find out a way to extract DNA from the actual Palo Verde seed pods. They even say, which I'm going to say it my own way, well, we certainly use fingerprinting a lot in agriculture, but we've never actually looked at the particular species of a tree. Bitch, I never even heard of this tree. I thought it might have been a salsa. I just remember those pods flying everywhere like helicopters. Anyways, we find out that the prosecutors had circumstantial evidence linking Mark Bogan to the Denise Johnson murder, but they needed to find something a bit more concrete. They knew that they would have to prove that Bogan was there at the crime scene, and those goddamn pods were their best chance. The scientists literally had no idea that their research would be the cornerstone of a gosh darn murder case. We find out that the Arizona Sheriff's Department wanted to know if there was any way scientists could match the two pods found in the back of Mark Bogan's truck to a specific tree.
So Dr. Helenjaris used what is known as a randomly amplified polymorphic DNA technique, or RAPID. All of this sounds like stuff we heard on the daily during COVID, but this is a less common test than the RFLP test we mentioned on almost every episode at this point. Yeah, that is the same test used in searches for human DNA. One of the great things about rapids, though, is that you're able to know nothing about an individual species or type of organism. You don't have to have prior knowledge about it. All you have to do is get the DNA. So Drew, let's break down the process of getting the DNA from a plant.
Let's get the DNA.
The test begins by removing the beans from their outer shell.
Seeds have DNA both from the mother tree and the other trees that would have pollinated it.
So we need to get rid of those and just use the pod material,
which only has DNA from the mother tree.
The shells are then put into liquid nitrogen,
making them brittle and easier to grind into a fine powder.
A chemical solution is added, and the DNA floats as a sticky bundle of molecules. To do this, they use a technique called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR.
Anyone who's lived through a global pandemic should know this. Come on now.
The copying process takes place in a DNA thermal cycler.
Within a few hours, this technique multiplies the DNA millions of times.
The DNA is then placed into various lanes of a gel with a dye added,
and then subjected to an electrical field.
Under ultraviolet light, the electrical current draws the negatively charged fragments through the gel to the positive end at the top.
The result resembles a barcode, the genetic fingerprint of a Palo Verde tree.
Helenjaris made an important discovery. The two pods found in Mark Bogan's truck matched each other.
and they matched the pods taken from the tree next to where Denise Johnson's body was discovered. Every other Palo Verde tree tested had a completely different DNA profile. Basically, right now, the district attorney investigators are overjoyed because this is exactly what they were hoping for. It wasn't a particular criminal that they were looking for, but for a specific tree. I mean, this is crazy. Yeah. It's a tree. Like, this is, I mean, in our 9 episodes, we've never turned to plants.
Right.
We've never turned to plants.
Yep.
Anyways, turns out they had a match. They were able to take the original samples, take a part of the sample from the pickup truck, determine that those 2 little pods actually came from the very same tree. They then compared all those samples from the trees and matched it to a single tree that happened to be at the crime scene, not knowing that the tree had the scrape on it, which, bingo, they actually matched it. We must remember that there were only a few trees tested in the beginning of this, but then we learned that the prosecution felt that that was not a large enough sample. They needed to show a potential judge and jury that all of the Palo Verde trees in Arizona actually do have a different DNA profile. So the district attorney sent Dr. Helen Jarvis pods from 100 different trees, asking him to prove that each had a separate and distinct DNA profile. And he actually tried to check Helen Jarvis.
I did not tell Dr. Helen Jarvis that I had gone back out to the scene, had a deputy take a sample from the same tree, which had the scrape on it.
Dr. Helen Jarvis actually proved that each of the pods had a different DNA profile, and he also discovered, under his little magician's sleeve, the prosecution's trick. He says that he called him a little concerned because they could tell all the trees apart, but they put the sample back in and it looked like it matched one of the random trees the district attorney submitted, not knowing the DA submitted the sample from the tree at the crime scene. So when that sample was a perfect match to the sample in the bigger test, it was a match. Basically, right now, they are all celebrating like it's the goddamn Super Bowl.
Yep, and that's because it was enough for police to arrest Mark Bogan and charge him for the murder of Denise Johnson. He, of course, entered a plea of not guilty, but everyone worried whether this new DNA evidence would be admissible in court. This is the first time plant DNA as evidence was introduced in a criminal trial anywhere. They held a preliminary hearing before a judge only to review the scientific evidence to see whether or not it was evidence that was generally accepted in the scientific community as both valid and reliable. For 3 days, lawyers and scientists argued whether plant DNA should be admitted into a criminal trial for the first time ever. Usually, for every argument supporting the science, there's always another side that you can find that will almost debunk the science. Mm-hmm. But in this case, all of the scientists agreed about one thing. Plant DNA, just like human DNA, is unique to each plant, and when properly tested, could distinguish one Palo Verde tree from another Palo Verde tree. Judge Bolton denied the defense motion to prohibit Dr. Helen Jarvis' testimony, thus allowing the DNA evidence to be admitted at the trial.
In setting a precedent, Judge Bolton had made DNA history.
I recently learned what setting a precedent means from my lawyer friend who is a Cook County prosecutor that we both went to high school with, Rihanna.
Yes, Rihanna.
Yes, she is also a great supporter of the podcast. So she taught me the importance of setting precedents. It seems to be the way that change happens, even bad change. In this case, it's a good change because Judge Bolton set a precedent for making plant DNA admissible evidence in a court of law. Now, when other lawyers submit similar evidence in other cases, they can present the ruling that Judge Bolton made here as an example to support their argument as to, why it should be admissible. In fewer words, when a precedent is set, it seems to pave the way for future rulings. And that is why our country freaked out about an Alabama Supreme Court ruling that declared embryos creating through IVF should be considered children. I just remember everyone being like, it's one ruling, chill. But my friends, not to completely derail, but if you think about IVF, for example, you have this very delicate process. You have this ruling come out that these embryos are now children. And then what happens to the people dealing with these delicate, implantations? And of course, there's going to be something damaged. So if you damage that, and now there's this court precedent that, how do you get charged? Do you get charged with murder?
Right.
So it's just those are the things that setting a precedent means in a court of law, especially when it's done on a federal level with like the Supreme Court. So when you do hear about setting a precedent in law, it's a really big deal. It is making legal history. And what Judge Bolton did here made legal history, which opened the door to this evidence now being used in a court of law for these cases.
We were the first criminal case in the country that used a DNA comparison of plant material as a piece of evidence.
Now armed with the weapon of the DNA fingerprint, the prosecution went to trial, attempting to prove to a jury that Mark Bogan murdered Denise Johnson. So what happened to Denise Johnson the night of May 2nd, 1992? According to the Forensic Files episode, they make a lot of problematic assumptions and it heavily relies on Mark's testimony. So here are the facts.
Mark Bogan and Denise Johnson crossed paths.
Somehow Denise wound up in his car.
Why? We don't know for sure. How? We don't know for sure. But Forensic Files acts like they found a hidden dash cam or something with the way they present their theory.
And they did not drive anywhere, Peter. Last time I checked, there was still only one set of pedals and one steering wheel in cars in 1992. So correction, Mark drove the car.
He took her to a deserted location because he's a predator and a coward and a disgusting waste of a human being who preyed on a vulnerable woman.
There was no consent involved, and the audacity to assume consent was involved at any point when the end result is Denise being murdered and unable to speak for herself is appalling.
Mark lost his pager while murdering Denise, leading investigators straight to him.
At some point, his truck scraped the palo verde tree, and 2 seed pods dropped into the back of his truck, and the plant DNA match put him at the scene of the crime.
A witness saw Mark's truck run a stop sign while fleeing the scene around 1:30 a.m.
Mark lived 18 minutes from the crime scene.
His wife told police she woke up as Mark got home just after 2 a.m.
And a witness told investigators that she saw the same wire used on Denise in the cab of his truck just days earlier.
This is more than just circumstantial evidence. It's corroborating evidence.
The jury found Mark Bogan guilty of murder in the first degree.
He was sentenced to life in prison without parole for at least 25 years.
The appellate court upheld the verdict.
Rotten prison, asshole. I hope your life sucks.
So listen, he admitted to the detectives that he'd washed his truck the next morning. He got rid of all of the evidence in the truck except for 2 singular Palo Verde bean pods. They needed evidence that placed Mark at the scene, and gosh darn, those 2 bean pods, if we didn't have them, oh lordy.
Because then they say he had a credible story. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what is the credible story?
Again, are we on Mark's side here? Because that's not credible.
I know.
What the fuck?
I know. And why are we hearing so much of Mark's story here?
It is enraging me. The prosecutor then says,
As a prosecutor, I had a mantle of evidence that I wanted to place upon the shoulders of the defendant. The Palo Verde pods took the mantle by the drawstring and wrapped it around his neck.
Savage.
Savage.
The defense then tried implying that the pods were planted in the back of Mark's truck, but I'm not even going to go down that road.
Come on.
Yeah. But investigators said that the seed pods were found in Bogan's truck before samples were ever taken from the crime scene.
This to me sounds like our last episode with the frickin' mayonnaise and ketchup and mustard. How could you plant 2 bean pods in the back of a pickup truck and let that be like, oh, yep, he didn't do it because those were planted.
And to go that far ahead and be like, you know what we could do? We're going to find a geneticist who's going to get the DNA from this. It's all going to work out, guys. Just toss it in bring the truck back. Yep.
It's
I
literally
found
like,
it. That's...
let me use ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard, and you know what? I'm gonna say that I just needed to clean my carpets.
It is that.
Oh gosh.
Anyways, all the evidence here is just very strong corroborating evidence. They all support each other, and that for me, it would convince me of his guilt as a juror. Implying that the pods were planted is just a weak-ass defense. Mark Bogan continues to maintain his innocence, and when researching updates, I learned that in prison, him and another inmate attacked a guard, and he's been trying to work things in his favor using, clerical errors and all that, claiming his rights were somehow denied due to him not getting certain paperwork within
Oh, come on.
a specific time window, whatever. I don't know. It was all shut down in a lot of different legal terms, but all in all, Mark's a piece of shit. So then his lawyer says this.
I'm trying to forget this case because I'm the only person on the planet that lost to a plant.
And then he laughs.
You guys, if your lawyer laughs because you have lost to a goddamn plant, all I can say is call a different lawyer because he knows you're guilty. And even the judges said it was something that had not been done before, something that was certainly very different from the routines that we do as everyday judges. But thank God that now there is something on the plate that people might have not looked at before. That like plant evidence could be something that could literally put someone into prison.
You're not safe from being detected of anywhere you go.
I mean, literally,
And
you
I
could use towels. You could use, what is it? Luminol. You could use anything. And even if there was a plant in your house, I'm telling you, do not kill someone because you're going to be found guilty. Period.
Detective Drew's coming for you.
Maybe I should have gone to the police force.
No.
No, I'm too Hugh Jackman. Could you imagine my dad? I'm like, Dad, listen, hey.
I'm going to go into the family business.
I think I'm going to go back to the family biz. I think I'm going to go into the police force. Could you just imagine what Michael would say? He would be like, yeah.
No, he'd do this. He'd do this. He'd do this. Oh, okay. Okay, Drew.
And then I would look at him and be like, no, I'm serious. And he'd probably be like, okay, no. There would be like, no, like, why do you feel this way?
No,
why do you want to be a nurse? He'd be like,
it down.
He'd shut it down. But I truly feel like now at this point, plants, towels, luminol. I think I could do it. Mm-hmm. Do you think so?
I don't doubt anything.
You don't?
You
Okay.
could do.
Okay, cool.
No.
You don't. Okay, cool. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Is that all you heard?
Yep. I will stick to being a ensemble member in a show. Woo! But I feel like I could be a true crime detective. I honestly feel like I could do it.
And so we close out the episode with some very painful but loving words from Denise's mother.
But I love my daughter very much. I love all my children. But it's something we just have to go through. It's done. I don't know what in the world that could have tripped him off to hurt her like that. I don't know, but I hope one day we'll find out.
Now for our missing person cases that we would like everyone to know about. This week and moving forward, we will also be covering a missing person case from the Hispanic community. Children alone, 1 in 3 that are reported missing under the age of 12 are Hispanic. So this is a community that we would also like to bring attention to along with our other disenfranchised communities that we have been covering up until this point. On July 11th, the Black and Missing Foundation's Instagram made that day the Relisha Rudd Awareness Day. Relisha Rudd was just 8 years old when she was reported missing on March 1st, 2014 from the DC General Homeless Shelter. She is considered a long-term missing child as her case remains unsolved. The caption says, "On this day, we continue to spread awareness on the disappearance of Relisha Rudd after 10 years because someone knows something. To learn more about Relisha's story, tune in to episode 1, season 1 of Untold Stories, Black and Missing podcast, Relisha Rudd, Hotel Surveillance Last Sighting of 8-Year-Old with Janitor." You can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts, or you can visit blackandmissingpodcast.com. Let's help find Relisha.
And from the Bureau of Indian Affairs.gov is the case of Robert Grant Alexander, who went missing on April 25th, 2013, and was last seen in Box Elder, Montana. Robert's vehicle was found after his disappearance on the Rocky Boys Indian Reservation in the Sandy Creek area on a road leading towards Mount Baldy. The Rocky Boy Tribal Police and BIA OJS Missing and Murder Unit are seeking assistance for any information on regarding the whereabouts of Robert Grant Alexander. His last known location was Box Elder, Montana. His hair is black, his eyes are brown, and his height is 5'9", and his weight is about 190 pounds. He is of American Indian or Alaska Native descent, and you are asked to please call in any tips to 1-833-560-2065. You can also submit case information or tips to the BIA one of 3 ways. Text all capital letters BIAMMU and your tip to 847-411. Call in tips to 1-833-560-2065 or email OJS_MMU@BIA.gov. And now we would like to highlight a missing person case from the Hispanic community this week and moving forward every week. This is coming from the criminaljustice.ny.gov website, and this is the missing person case of Catherine Arias. She was born April 7, 1989. She is female, about 5 foot and 100 pounds. Her hair color is brown along with her eyes. Catherine is a missing, vulnerable adult with schizophrenia and may be in need of medical attention. She is believed to be in New York City and was last seen in Red Bank, New Jersey on June 21st, 2022. If you or anyone else knows any information, you're asked to call the Red Banks, New Jersey Police Department at 732-530-2700.
That's our age. I couldn't imagine you going missing and me not knowing where you were.
Know. For over 2 years?
I know we talk about cases, and the science and all that stuff, but it's the missing person ones that I think about all day and all night randomly.
Yeah.
A couple episodes back, we did get a comment, I'm not sure if you saw it, about someone that had been found.
No, I didn't see that. They've been found?
Yeah. Elijah Okanola, the 24-year-old who was in Chicago. We posted his missing flyer April 22nd. He has been found.
Wow.
Yeah, he's reunited with his family.
Oh my God.
It was very, very great to see that. I know. I wish we saw it more.
I know. That makes me feel so good, though.
I mean, we probably did not play a role in it, but
I know.
It's just, wow, like we talk about such heavy and sad things, and we're putting these missing person cases out there, and all my imagination does when I hear you talk about it is just play these scenarios of all the things that could have happened or all the possibilities, and I want it to be a happy ending for these people. And clearly when we do this podcast, we realize that does not happen.
It doesn't happen all the time.
No. So it's really, really nice to see that he was found and reunited with his family. It was...
Oh my gosh, that makes me feel good.
Yeah. It was awesome. So I hope he's recovering and reconnecting and healing. I hope everyone is, because that's very scary.
And we are so thankful for all of our listeners who have chimed in and commented. We are going to take everything that you guys say and make sure that we do that.
Ooh, I hope everyone can just shake off everything we just talked about, carry the knowledge with you, but try to move through the day a little bit lighter and than what we feel right now, because
it's a bit heavy.
It's a bit heavy. We will also be posting additional case information on our Instagram if you would like to learn more about the cases we just covered on our Instagram at Forensic Files Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for caring. So that was episode 10. Oh my God, 10! Double digits!
Oh my God, we're in the double digits!
Oh my gosh, we made it to 10 episodes.
That's wild. That is wild.
That just sunk in.
I honestly did not think that we would get past episode 1.
Me neither. I didn't even think episode 1 was actually going to happen.
It is so fulfilling to get people's feedback, especially people in friends that you know that are just now tuning in, as we are we've gone through life in the past, what is it, 6 months? Thank you so much for going along this crazy journey with us. But we are in the double digits, baby.
Double digits. Woo-hoo. We should have had
I know.
Pop a champagne bottle. We'll do it in person when I visit you in New York for the first time I'm ever going to New York. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. Okay, so for our next episode, it will be episode 18 from season 14 called Automotive, but with a dash in the middle for that little play on words, that Forensic Files is just not good at.
And you know what my first thing that I thought of when I saw this is go grease lightning. It's going to be something with a car. It's going to be something with a car. I feel like it's going to be something with a car.
Well, as long as you don't have me singing Grease, we're okay. That's all that matters. Thank you for tuning in. If you like our podcast, please help us spread the word, share on social media, share on Reddit, share everywhere, and drop a review and tell us what you think.
If you don't, have a nice day and
Sashay away.
Bye.
So, are you ready to get into it?
Let's fucking do it. Wait, can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we swore so
Let me
much.
check with the boss.
Okay, say it one more time.
Oh, what? Oh. We're doing so well.
I mean, honestly, we're doing good. We're like,
Yeah,
at
I
the
like
start
this
of it.
energy. We're fine. We're good. Yeah. But this
Oh my
reenactment-
God.
Oh my God, what?
I forgot to tell you, I booked a job, but then I turned it down. We'll talk about it later.
What the fuck?
This is why I need my ADHD medication that's coming tomorrow. Thank God. Okay, go ahead.
To do this, they use a technique called...
Good luck!